I know growing up, my dad used to get mad when I was listening to rap. And
Yeah,
I know you've said like your parents didn't even see it as a phase. They just chose not to acknowledge it at all. Now that you've kind of built more of a career around rap, have your parents changed their perception around it? And how did you go about kind of encouraging them to do that?
They ignored it from the time that I started. I mean, they clearly didn't like me listening to rap music. They didn't understand it, but they weren't they weren't too crazy about it. They just ignored it. I wasn't the best student in school, so they were just like, he's just gonna do whatever the fuck he wants to do. I have a younger brother. They were like, we'll focus on him instead. So for a long time, they just left me alone with my music. I performed at India Day in Times Square, and I think that was the first time that my dad called me right after that performance, and he was like, where did you learn how to do that? He was in awe of the fact that I got on the stage, and that wasn't a great performance. Like it was not a great performance, but he was in awe of the fact that I even got on the stage and that I talked to the audience. There was like 20,000 people out there in Times Square. I talked to them, I did my songs, and I was cool. I admit it wasn't a great performance or whatever, but he was in awe of that shit, and I thought that was really funny. I was like, yeah, Dad, this is what I've been doing for a really long time. And because then people started calling him, because it was on TV or it was on the web or something, I don't know. Aunties and uncles were calling him like, yo, we saw Kunal, we saw Kunal. They weren't saying yo, but they were like, we saw him. He got a sense of pride out of that. And that continued when AR Rahman had me rap on some of his songs. I've been blessed to be featured on 3 of his songs in Bollywood. First time I've been paid for anything having to do with my music. And once that happened, after me being on some AR tracks and me performing at IFA, people used to call my parents and be like, your son is a singer, right? I don't know why the fuck people even gave a shit to call my parents. Like, why you have the energy to worry about someone else's kid is beyond me. But people used to call my parents and say that, and they'd say it in like this like kind of making fun of it kind of way. I would laugh because I was like, I'm not a singer. This person's clearly a moron. But after all this stuff happening with AR, IFA, my parents, they just naturally took it more seriously. We as Indians, we give that a bad rap that, oh, we're the only ones whose parents need that sort of validation to get us into the creative field. I'm a little older now. After I've thought about it, like, I think that's pretty relevant in all cultures, actually. Everyone's not overjoyed when you're like, oh, I want to be an artist. Whether you're white, black, Asian, Indian, whatever, they're not overjoyed. And some cultures do have it a little bit easier than others, but for the most part, everyone's not like super overjoyed about that shit. So when you get validation from a third party, like an AR Rahman, or like you're on TV or something, that's when, it really changed for my parents. And I still take digs at them sometimes because they're like, yeah, we supported you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Shut up. Like, you did not support me till all this stuff happened. But I'm grateful for you not supporting me because it made me go harder at this.
What does your brother do?
He's an engineer, yeah, but he DJ'd for a while. He was a DJ. He went to school in Florida. So he DJ'd for a while. He tried to do some music stuff as well. But he's an engineer, yeah.
Did it bother you at all that your parents were kind of more focused on him, or did you just let it roll because you said it made you work harder?
Yeah, I think it didn't really like outwardly affect me. I didn't honestly notice it either. I was just like, oh, good, they're leaving me alone. So I was like, cool. Later on, when my parents were like, we didn't know how to raise a kid. You were our first kid. Like, we just kind of messed up a few things and we tried to correct it with your brother and like, all this sort of stuff. Then I started realizing, yeah, they had at some point fully given up on me. And it was fine. It was fine for me. I think I need that sort of freedom, right? When people are telling me to do something, I always do the opposite. It's like a natural thing for me. I hate it because like, I don't want people to think I do it on purpose. It's not on purpose. Anytime anyone has ever tried to clamp down on me about something or about a viewpoint, I just go in the opposite direction. So them leaving me alone allowed me to kind of just do what I needed to do, and if they had clamped down on me and paid hella attention to me and been kind of backwards about all this stuff, who knows what direction I would have gone in. I might have, instead of, even slightly proceeding to get an education or something, I might have just dropped out fully out of like high school, out of college and been like, I'm pursuing music. Like that might have been me. I don't know.